This is Scott Bakula, and you're listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Theorizing that one could time travel within his own lifetime, Dr. Sam Beckett stepped into the Quantum Leap Accelerator and vanished. He awoke to find himself trapped in the past, facing mirror images that were not his own, and driven by an unknown force to change history for the better. His only guide on this journey is Al, an observer from his own time, who appears in the form of a hologram that only Sam can see and hear. And so Dr. Beckett finds himself leaping from life to life, striving to put right what once went wrong, and hoping each time that his next leap will be the leap home.
You are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast. This is episode 101, Too Close for Comfort by Ashley McConnell. Welcome to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Christopher DeFilippis.
I'm Allison Pregler.
And I'm Matt Dale.
And today we reconvene the Quantum Leap Podcast Book Club, and we will be talking about Too Close, Too Comfortable. Matt, was that your joke?
Yeah, with second novel, 2 twos, well, there should be 2 twos in the title. They missed a trick there. So disappointing, Ashley.
It was originally titled Too Close for Comfort, but Allison and Matt have been giving it like Fast and Furious type sequel names in the threads all week. I think we had the number 2, close, and then comfort spelled with a 4 where the F should be.
Yeah. I like Too Close, Too Comfort because it's the Too Fast, Too Furious kind of thing, you know?
I thought it was Too Close, Too Comfortable.
Too Close, Too Comfortable.
Do we think calling the next one 3 Wall is too much of a stretch? Because that's the best I can do.
We'll figure it out.
I like Too Close, Too Comfort, but the 2 in the middle, is like they're both TOO.
Oh, I was thinking the number 2 for both, but yes.
So I still like comfortable. So Too Close, Too Comfortable.
Too Close, Too Comfortable.
And it is all about family.
I got family.
So, I mean, that is apropos.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is the second novel outing by author Ashley McConnell. Initial impressions, guys. I feel like Ashley's stepping up her game here. Start with you, Allison.
Well, it's such a good intro for it, but it's not my favorite. It's not one that I dislike that much either. It's just I've read all of the Quantum Leap books, and one thing that's kind of recurring through it, a lot of people want to involve Al with the leaps in some way. So there's quite a few that do that, and I feel this is like one of the lesser ones. I'm not really that into the leap portion of it, to be honest, but there's lots of interesting things in it, and I think Ashley wrote it well, like usual.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, Ashley is a good writer, and yeah, it is very well written, but yeah, I got to agree with Alison. I mean, that the length of these novels is sort of, if they filmed them, it would be the equivalent of maybe a 2-parter, and this feels like a standard length episode that's been stretched out a bit to fill novel length, with Al thrown in for no reason. The gimmick of young Al, you could take him out and the book would lose 20 or 30 pages, but beyond that, I don't think we'd be noticed.
It touches on some stuff that I think other novels do better, as far as Al and his timeline in the present being affected, or the possibility of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? I was remiss. Let me read the blurb, and then I'll give you guys my initial impressions. Leaper beware, the future you alter may be your own. When Dr. Sam Beckett leaps into the middle of a men's encounter group circa 1990, he meets Al? Not the holographic Al from the near future, but a younger, soul-searching Al, beating his naked chest in a mock tribal quest for his primitive nature. It all seems pretty funny to Sam, except for the fact that his mission could make or break the Quantum Leap project for all time. Quantum Leap, too close, too comfortable. Wah, wah, wah. All new adventure. First time in print.
That description's a lie. It's a lie. It makes it seem like that's the premise of this book, and it's not.
Exactly!
I would have loved if that was what the whole book was about, but it's not.
As for me, as a guy who loves all the geeky lore stuff, that was the part of the book that sort of left me cold. I really enjoyed the main leap plot.
All right,
it's good.
I felt like I was watching an episode. Like this was something that would have fit solidly into the middle of season 3, I think. And it would have been, I think, an episode that people, maybe it wouldn't have been a favorite, but I think people would remark on it as, you know, a pretty good one or an okay one at least. That's how I see it. But why don't we set the stage a little bit? That men's encounter group is run by a character named Dr. Stephen Wales, who I call Angry Dad, Bad Dad. The other cast includes his wife, Jennifer, who is the most uptight of suburban housewives you've ever met. His daughter, Lisa, who is the troubled teen. Her bum of a boyfriend named Steno. Is that Russian?
I was more thrown by Jennifer with a V than Steno.
That seemed unnecessary.
Steno just felt like a greaser name, you know? Like, I just imagine him like a greaser. You know, hey, it's me, Steno, yo!
I thought Allison was doing an impression of young Chris then.
Hey, yo! Forget about it.
And, of course, we have the leapy Ross Malachi, who is a college teen who lives with the whales. He lives above the garage like Fonzie. So that's cool. But instead of taking place in the 1950s and 60s, this one takes place June 22nd, 1990 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a mere, 100 miles, 200 miles from Project Quantum Leap at a time when Quantum Leap is actually being developed and being tunneled into the bottom of the cavern. Sam's Magic Blue Mountain is under construction.
Is this the first leap into the 90s outside of Sam leaping back? Am I forgetting something?
I don't think you're wrong with that. I think that the latest they went was, except for the leap back, was sometime in the 80s, right, man?
Yeah, let me just... You know, I should have predicted that coming up, because that's a very valid question. Where's my list?
Because I think when they were filming the show, it just would have felt like too close, too comfortable, to when they were actually filming, but... That's something that's great about the books, too. You can go a little bit further and have that perspective of like, yeah, this is kind of what was going on around that time.
In terms of TV, Evil Leaper 3 is the latest one. So, Bold Leap Forward went to 1992, but that was never produced.
I don't think we're counting Bold Leap Forward in that.
We should always count Bold Leap Forward. Angels Unaware was 95. There was going to be again, going unpublished, a Sliders crossover that would have been 95 as well.
Oh, man, they made a cover for that and everything.
A Leap to Die For was 97.
Whoa. Hold on.
Mirror's Edge, 99.
Chris, did you not know about the Sliders crossover comic they were going to do?
Mind blown.
What? You just haven't read my book, have you?
Yeah. Oh, now Chris hasn't read his book.
I don't have your book, Matt. I wrote the foreword, but I still don't have a copy of it.
That's all right. I mean, I read the first 2 pages of Foreknowledge and just guessed the rest of it. I figured it was all just a Back to the Future ripoff. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's anything I write is basically Back to the Future.
Yeah. So, yeah, most of my 1990s leaps are because I consider the in-character advertisements to be canon. So, like, when he leaps into a weather girl for, like, 10 seconds, that I consider to be 90s leaps.
You're talking about the commercials?
Yeah, the commercials are canon.
Random people. Like, he's on Night Court. You count that as a leap?
Yes. Do you not?
Remember when they crossed over with Night Court for 2 seconds in a commercial?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Midnight Caller. Did he cross over with Midnight Caller? Anyway,
wow.
Yeah. Aside from that, if you're being normal, which I admit I'm not, then yes, this is one of the latest, or one of the last leaps chronologically.
So it is the first in the 90s as far as the show or the books are concerned, yeah?
Yeah. Angels Unaware and Mirror's Edge are the only other times that the books go into the 90s. But by the end of this podcast, I will have convinced you that the leap into Night Court is totally canon.
I hope the one where he leaps into Santa Claus is also canon.
Have you not read my book either? Yes!
You know what? I did read the book, and this is coming back to me. I remember reading stuff like this. Like, do we need to ask if this is canon or not?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I interviewed Matt when the book first came out, and we recently rediscovered that interview because it had been off the feed for a while, but I found a copy of it and I rebuilt it. And speaking to Matt back then, he considers everything canon. There's no such thing as not canon. If somebody mentions Quantum Leap in a sentence, it suddenly becomes canon. This podcast is now canon in the Quantum Leap universe.
Pretty much. In my defense, I've got no defense for this, but I was inspired, and I think I probably mentioned this in the interview, I was inspired by a Back to the Future chronology by Rich Handley and someone else. I think he had a co-writer, but they did the same thing. They took like promotional materials, like the sides of plastic cups that were given away in Burger King. They considered it all to be canon, and they did such a good job of it. I was like, I want to do the same thing with Quantum Leap, but there was obviously less stuff to do. But yeah, they managed to get a massive chronology of Back to the Future by including the dumbest stuff, and it was totally plausible. So yes,
that's great. No, I love that you included stuff like that. I love it.
I know it's silly. If you corner me on this, I'm not going to try claiming anything other than the 95 episodes, the comics and the novels are canon, but why the hell not?
Why not? Well, you guys now have to somebody's got to enlighten me about sliders. Like, what would they have slid into the Quantum Leap universe? Would Sam have leapt into Quinn? Like, how would that have worked? I'm so intrigued.
It was a comic they were going to make, and they had a cover for it because there was an advertisement for it, I think. Was that where it came from, Matt?
I don't think... Was there a cover?
I know I've seen a picture of the cover, unless it was some fan thing, but it looked like it. I thought it was in your book. There was a picture of it.
Oh, if it was mine, that was fake. I know I did a mock-up cover for that, and those... Oh,
maybe that's what I was thinking of.
And those other spin-off comics that never happened. I did mock-up covers for all of them.
Oh, I see. Well, that's cool. Yeah, but that was something they were going to do, but did it fall through because the comics, because the line stopped?
Yeah, I think it just fell through because it was ridiculous. So what was their...
I think it would have been great. I think Sliders and Quantum Leap could go hand in hand very well. That's an easy crossover to do.
There was Quantum Slide, which was pitched... Are we going to talk about the novel at any point? Never mind. There was Quantum Slide, which was pitched in August 96, and the synopsis is... Occurring immediately after the Ultimatum miniseries, the Sliders return home, and simultaneously Sam Beckett leaps into Quinn Mallory. The unusual nature of the leap leaves Quinn's memory intact, and he's able to work with Al to understand why Sam has leaped to the present day. Blah, 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 lots of other stuff. And then, also in August 96, there was another pitch, The Brothers Paradox. Micro-singularity causes the alternative universe plenum of Sliders to intersect the unitary timeline world of Quantum Leap. Sam leaps at the same time the Sliders slide. The result! Quinn, Rembrandt, Wade and Professor Arturo find themselves on Earth Prime in 1967. Arturo works with a former girlfriend into whom Sam has leapt to save his brother from the fate hinted at in Narcotica. Blah, 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 blah.
There's a lot of Sliders continuity in here. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Sliders comic continuity.
Where are the Cro-Mags? Come on.
Screw the Cro-Mags. I'm glad the Cro-Mags aren't mentioned. Stupid Cro-Mags. Took over the whole damn show.
I kind of really like the Cro-Mag storyline.
The Cro-Mags were good in the first appearance, and that's it.
This new pilot of Quantum Leap, my one dream now is that it does spin off into a series, and in that series they do a Sliders crossover episode, despite the fact Sliders hasn't been on the air for 30 years. That doesn't matter. They should just bring everyone back for a crossover.
It'd be kind of hard because if you know Sliders, most of the characters are dead or worse than dead by this point.
That doesn't matter in alternative universe theory. Bring them all back.
That's true.
Based on the synopsis you gave, I will be disappointed forever unless any Sliders Quantum Leap crossover now has a scene where Scott Bakula is getting jiggy with John Rhys Davies. He was leaping into his girlfriend, right?
I feel like Sliders was inspired by Quantum Leap a little bit. They did have a character named Beckett, and I feel like that wasn't a coincidence.
Yeah, you know what? When Sliders premiered, I was so hopped up on it because it was sort of quantum leapy. And I love, just the sci-fi concept of alternate universes. And then I saw the premiere and I saw the first season and I was like, yeah, this ain't that good.
Oh, well, you saw the good season.
I know.
You stopped at a good point, actually.
Oh, no, I stuck with it. I watched, I think, almost all of Sliders because I wanted it to be good.
Oh, you were like, this isn't for me, and then you watched years and years and years of it?
I remember some Sci-Fi Channel Sliders.
I've done that with so many TV shows. I hate this show, but I'm invested now. I've seen the first 3 episodes. I know there's another 12 seasons, but...
You know what? It's easier for me to stop stuff now, but right now I'm in the middle of Power Rangers, so I get it.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so too close, too comfortable.
Well, we're talking about
close, too comfortable is a book. And
the Al is a bit in.
Okay, this whole plot of this book, I know that you were into the leap portion more than the lore portion, Chris. And Matt and I seem to be in the opposite group here. Because, I don't know. They did the leap in, and it's supposed to be kind of funny that Sam's in the middle of this men's encounter group, and they're all shirtless and beating their chests and all that. But it's not really a comedy leap per se. I just couldn't get into any of this men's encounter group stuff. Maybe I am not the target for this, but when it's just the whole, what does it mean to be men? And, running around doing dances and stuff. I could not get into it, and it was hard for me to get behind Wales as a character. He was a real jerk.
That's a really good point that I hadn't thought about when I was reading it, that this is it's a serious leap, but it has those comic trappings of the men's encounter group and the beating of the chest. It's set up to be a funny leap, and then it suddenly isn't, but the men's encounter group is still going on. That's kind of weird. It is 2 tonally very different leaps going on at once.
Yeah, it's the leap-in was thought of oh, this would be a funny thing to do, but then the follow-through doesn't really have anything to do with that.
I guess they did that in the episodes a few times.
Yeah.
That's true.
Come back next week for the hijinks. Oh no, there's going to be people dying.
Sam's Bigfoot. Just kidding. It's a depressing Vietnam story. Psych.
There is precedence, so yeah. And
yes,
I think that this... the men's encounter stuff is pretty weak sauce, but I think that that's just how they wanted to get some comic relief in, and also have an excuse for Al to be there. I mean, that was sort of very tenuous at best, but he's supposed to be in the men's encounter group because he's going through his 5th divorce, his 5th and final divorce, with, I guess, someone that Ashley named Rita. Is Rita Ashley's invention, or was Rita the 5th wife in this series as well?
No, the 5th wife in canon is Maxine, because there was the whole thing he talked about how his 5th wife, Maxine, looked exactly like Diane Frost in the Hunting We Will Go. I don't remember a Rita. I think the 2nd wife was the only one that didn't have a name.
So maybe this, and now this is... See, I like the leap portion of this, and I'll tell you, so maybe we can separate the two because we seem to be doing it anyway. You're right. Let's save the Al stuff. Let's just talk about the main leap for a second.
Did he say Rita? Because I don't remember reading a part where he's talking about
said
a Rita.
I wrote it down specifically because it's part of the lore.
Oh, Chris wrote it down. It must have happened.
I mean, I did read the book last night, so...
Yeah, I usually write stuff down if it feels weird, but...
Yeah.
Since Chris actually contributed to the canon, that means anything that he writes down is canon, by my rules. Chris wrote a shopping list this morning, which is canon.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Anyway,
I could be completely wrong, and Chris probably remembers more than me because he just read the book last night. I thought it was his 3rd wife, Ruthie, was around that time, because this is pre-Project Quantum Leap.
Do you have doctor's handwriting, Chris? Is this possible that you wrote Ruthie?
Oh my god, I wrote the word Rita, and now I'm getting persecuted. Jesus.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just didn't write it down if that's what it was. But I feel like in my head, and granted, a lot of things get mixed up. What was in the books? What was in some fanfic I read? What did I make up in my head? I don't know. But I feel like around this time, he was not through all 5 wives before Project Quantum Leap had started.
And there could be an in-universe reason for that in this book, because, and that's why I wanted to maybe separate the two. I think the reason why I liked the leap portion with the family and the family drama is because it was very grounded and it was very Quantum Leap. It's something that you would have seen on the show at some point. It's just basic family drama with the dad that can't reach the daughter and the daughter that hates the dad, and sort of that growth between a family and them coming together. That's quintessential Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I mean, it was about the family, and I think thematically it works. I understand what Ashley is doing there. I guess it was just, I wasn't personally into reading about an asshole dad and the dying mom and the whole cancer subplot and all this stuff. And it's just very heavy stuff and themes I'm not particularly into reading for 300 pages. Not that they were badly done, just, I don't know, it was just kind of rough to get into.
It was tough in places.
It was, and I think that I could see it playing out as an episode. So maybe that's another reason why I caught into it a bit more than I did the Al stuff, because compared to the Al stuff, this was very grounded in Quantum Leap, the main story with the Waleses. But then you get into the Al stuff, which is the stuff that I should love. It's like all the timey-wimey stuff. It's like all the back at the project stuff and like the speculating on the nature of Sam's leaping and how it could affect their present and all that. And I found that to be confusing at best. There are some ideas that Ashley throws out in that storyline that just either don't work for me or that I just don't understand what she was getting at.
Well, let's get into that. What are some of these things that didn't work for you?
Well, there was right off at the bat, Sam is musing because he knows where he's at. He's saying, I could call the project right now. I could call myself if I remembered the number and say, don't get into the accelerator chamber. And then he muses about being in two places at once. And something about your body someplace and your soul someplace else, and there's no place. And that was confusing to me because Sam leaping into the 90s or into a time when the project existed shouldn't make a difference because he's still living along his linear timeline, even though he's back. Yeah. To put in Doc Brown terms, they're not thinking three-dimensionally. Just because Sam is there, he could be there 17 or 35 times. It doesn't make a difference. He's leaping into a different person each time, and he's still himself in the time that he leaps.
This is literally every single episode.
Yeah,
is like this. Apart from the ones where he's not quite been born yet, but aside from that.
And I think there are two of those, right? But he would theoretically have been conceived in those two leaps. So
we're really only talking about the leap between the states as the only televised outlier. Every other time, he is around twice.
Yeah, there's over 100 Scott Bakulas by the end of the show. Yeah, just leaping around at different points in his time.
Yeah, and it shouldn't make a difference though. They seem to make a big deal about Sam leaping into a time after his first leap, and that's where some of the confusion came for me.
I mean, it is close to the first time, the closest he's been to the first time he's leaped, physically and chronologically. So maybe that's why it was on his mind.
It is. But at one point in this book, it refers to the first leap as happening in 1999, which, I mean, we know that's wrong, but as far as Ashley was concerned when she was writing this, he was still 9 years away from actually leaping.
Yeah, I guess it's just because 1990, this is the first time he's leaped into the 90s. I don't know. I think there were a lot of things that Ashley kind of included as some flavor text, like kind of speculate about some things. How does this work? What could he do? It crosses his mind, but it's not on the forefront. Although it is kind of important to the story in that, like, the fact Sam could affect the project is why Al is so affected in this particular moment. I don't know. It's the fact that they bring that up. I don't know if I'm particularly interested in reading a story where Sam tries to stop himself from leaping, but the fact it's brought up and then kind of like, I don't know.
Well, like you say, Allison, I think it's fun to speculate on the nature of the time travel and the limitations and how Sam being in the same time period as the project might have some different consequences that we haven't seen before. But I just feel like the way she explored it was confusing at best. And it didn't make sense in universe some of the time. And wait, just before we continue with this. Okay. Page 65. In precise, dry, lawyerly fashion, it informed him that his fifth wife's petition for the dissolution of their marriage would be heard and therefore end in consequence, blah, 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 blah. Page 68. Well, maybe he'd go back one more time, just once, to see what was going on. He'd promised the divorce mediator that he'd give it a fair shot. Now it looked like Rita wasn't going to wait and see if chanting would improve their marriage. So
yeah, you got it, man.
I know I wrote it down. I knew I saw it somewhere. I wouldn't have pulled Rita out of a hat.
I'm surprised. Twice I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that when I was researching this 6 years ago or this week.
And, in Ashley's defense,
good spot.
I don't know that, you would have, again, had the internet and the chronology of Al's wives and all that stuff. I mean, it was so loosey-goosey on the show that...
It's an obscure thing.
Yeah, but anyway.
I've got no issue with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either, but can someone tell me why Al was just so ridiculously freaked out about seeing himself?
I think the way he reacted was a little weird and a little overdramatic, but I was kind of thrown off by the fact we're on the second book of the series. There are two books, and they're both written by Ashley McConnell. Both stories feature Tina and Al just screwing off from the project.
Yes.
Because they decide they don't want to. Yeah. Knowing that Sam could be in danger, Al knows more than Tina that, Sam could get in some trouble if he's not there to help with the project. I would think that would put Al's future more in danger than if he was there trying to control the situation. I could see him being a little antsy because he's there and Sam could do something to more directly affect him. And that would, I think, get in your head if you're like, well, your life's being directly affected by a time travel project right in front of you. But the fact he just goes off and he's like, I'm going to hang out at a hotel somewhere for a little while and all this, I don't know.
I didn't like that aspect of it either, because to me that was the most out of character that Al is in this book, and he's pretty out of character for a bit of it. Granted, he's in uncharted waters, and as viewers or as readers, we're in uncharted waters until you take Leap for Lisa into account. And of course, it says in the front of the book, this takes place before Leap for Lisa.
Which it doesn't.
Which it doesn't, because Sam thinks about a time when he could maybe remember that Al had disappeared.
Yes.
Oh yeah, then that would be exactly then, after that. They reference it completely. It must have been they're like, I don't know, we need to place this somewhere before Leap for Lisa, I guess.
But it's weird, because doesn't that first page read something like, if this obviously takes place before Leap for Lisa or something?
Yes, yeah, like duh.
It's like, what? Why obviously, when actually the only obvious thing is it takes place after it?
The timing of the sleep is, of course, asshole, prior to the one recorded in the television episode of Leap for Lisa. I love, of course.
I mean, I've been following Doctor Who novels for years, and whenever they do Doctor Who novels that are set between stories, they'll tell you which stories they're set between, even if it doesn't matter, just because we're fans and we like to know these things. So you kind of just would take it as one of those, like, oh yeah, we're just telling you, but it's the of course that makes it seem like, what's Ashley thinking?
Of course, stupid.
Why is this so obvious? What's so, I don't know. Aside from the fact that Leap for Lisa is referenced once in the past tense.
We do have a time to place it in at the project too. It's a Christmas sleep for Al.
Yes.
It's Christmas. Isn't that nice?
Is it?
Yeah, there's something about Christmas decorations or something, I think. Something that places it around that time.
He's dressed very Christmassy, isn't he, as well?
He's got mistletoe in his hat.
I love in the books and the comics, he's way more costumey than he ever was on the show. He's always got to have these gimmicky kind of stuff.
A dark green suit with a lighter green shirt. Okay, that's all right. A festive red tie and a fedora with a sprig of mistletoe pinned to the band.
Very Christmassy.
And then he later shows up with a faux leather red suit and matching fedora.
Oh, snazzy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why, family, that ties into the family thing. Family would be on his mind, I
got family.
Get with the Fast and the Furious.
And if you connect it to one of the later novels, Christmas is around when his dad died, so... Huh? It all comes together.
Oh, and in this we hear that not only is his fifth wife Rita, but his dad's name is Guido?
Naming an Italian Guido. Guido.
In Ashley's defense, Laura has a Guido in her family.
Yeah, it's not that I guess some Italians are named Guido. Yeah, I think this is the first time his dad is named.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure this is.
So it's Guido and Stoppa together again.
Was Stoppa must have been his mother's side, because that's Russian.
I guess.
Yeah, he had a Russian mom, he had an Italian dad.
Is that canon that his mom was Russian? Or is that extrapolated from Stoppa?
Yeah, he says it pretty early on that, like, the Russian on his mother's side. He says it, like, in Kamikaze Kid or something.
Well, one thing that Al being out of character and, screwing off to that hotel gave us was a little bit of future tech that Ashley introduces. This was, of course, before smartphones, so Al is talking to the project on a View phone that the hotel brings to him. It's VUFON or VUPHONE.
Yes, I love that. So futuristic.
So high tech.
View phone. Imagine being able to talk to each other and see each other at the same time.
I wonder if the View phones were decorated with like blue LED stars, like gas pedals and rearview mirrors and shoes.
There's got to be LEDs all over the place. Blinky lights, little light up cubes.
Yeah, another thing after Al goes back to the project, another piece of like future tech that Ashley introduces is a hologram table in Sam's office. So it's like he could play chess like in Star Wars on the Falcon.
Yeah, I did kind of like the touch of Al going into Sam's old offices. It says he has 2 offices. And there's like details like there's an old Petri dish left behind. And they talk about Sam and Al's cells being used for Ziggy again, all this kind of tying in. I like the idea that Petri dish is still there. Like they just left everything as it was when Sam leaped.
I'm wondering if Sam was populating his own cells for the neurocells for Ziggy's construction.
No, he's always doing some sort of experiment.
He's always down there with his black funding.
Playing a god. This little Petri dish.
Yeah, they really hammered home the neurocells in this novel and how they connect Sam and Al and Ziggy. I think it's much more spelled out in this than it was in the novel, in Carney Knowledge. Another fetish that Ashley has, I guess, since Al went to Sam's upstairs office in the last novel, she didn't want to repeat herself, so now he has a secret downstairs office, like you said, with all the secret Petri dishes and crap and the hollow table.
His Petri dish office. I mean, I like those scenes of like Al that's kind of musing about stuff, and he has these conversations with Ziggy. I like him just kind of bouncing off of Ziggy. At one point, like Sam's mad at Ziggy, and Al says, "Don't hurt his feelings. Don't hurt Ziggy's feelings." It's a kind of interesting stuff. Thinking about like what the project is like and what's left behind of Sam.
Well, one thing that she did double down on in this novel is that in the first book, if you recall, when Al goes back to the project, there are small changes every time he goes back. And I think that the main narrative tension in this book was the fact that everything could change right out from under them without them even noticing it. So it's like she took that concept and maybe, realized this is a much more interesting take. I can really get some good narrative mileage out of this. And maybe that's why she decided, okay, let's put Al in there and let's make it that Al is hearing Sam talk about a past that Al doesn't even recall. Like Sam seems to be living in a different timeline than Al's memory, that's what I found the most intriguing part of this. But I don't think that she brought those threads together satisfyingly in the narrative to sort of bring it home. I feel like they were just left out there as ideas, and they were there to introduce tension when she felt like she needed some tension, but in the end, they ultimately didn't matter. I wish that there had been a little bit more concrete, not only exposition on that, but resolution on that.
Yeah, there's another book in the line called Random Measures. I think that's the one I'm thinking of, where Al's timeline is affected directly and some stuff changes around the project. And that's a little more important in that one. And I think fulfilled a little better than this one, because you're right. It's touched on some, and you get little bits where you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Sam says, like, that thing you used to always say, Al. And Al's like, well, I never said that. Well, it was like your catchphrase, Like, what? Yeah. That would affect you. Like, you'd be like, why is all this stuff changing? And you're just completely out of control of your life. And I get why that would affect Al, but again, it doesn't really connect to too much in the end. Like, it doesn't really go very many places.
Yeah, I think it was just bringing up timey-wimey for the sense of timey-wimey. And, not everything can be Blink. I understand that. But at least give it some kind of narrative coherence. That's all I ask. And it's a good experiment, and there are good errant thoughts, but they never go beyond that, as far as I'm concerned. And everybody knows that Al's catchphrase is "Ain't it a kick in the butt?"
Ain't this a kick in the butt?
Not use all your available resources. Come on.
He's got a few of them. He's got Bingo Bango Bongo.
Yeah.
Not a zip, zero zilch.
And apparently now, Gushy, bounce me. Did you guys notice that? I love that one. Bounce me.
Gushy bounce me?
He does.
Yeah, it's in a point where he would normally say "center me" and on Sam says "bounce me."
That's very good. Gushy bounce me.
But that's also when all the when the tension was coming together when they were going to rob the mall.
Yeah, I love the stuff with the mall. I love the stuff where Sam and Al got to team up and stop a mall robbery. That's very good. And then hologram Al is manipulating the other Al in some way.
Let's talk about that. I really am so curious about how they sort of got away with this, but didn't exactly get away with this in the book. Al can't see holographic Al. 1990 Al can't see 1999 Al. I guess we'll call it like that, right? So how is it that Al can go and basically the book makes it like he goes to spur himself to go to the mall to help Sam out, and he does so by yelling in his ear and covering his eyes and making him not see some cigars that are already on the table?
Yeah, he's like, you gotta go get the cigars. Hypnotize himself. Oh, that's great. Nothing really makes any sense when you think about it. But, I guess there've been instances on the show a few times where Al seemingly was able to, affect or people on leaps or talk to them in some way. So, I guess.
And whose brainwaves would Al be tuned to but Al's? It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if you do it that way, it's Al's cells and Ziggy too, so I guess there's some sort of timey-wimey thing happening there.
Yeah, I feel like, again, that was an interesting, because I never would have thought to try that, and I can't see any reason that you couldn't make it work in universe because of the connection Al shares with Ziggy. So what would have been the harm of, again, putting a little bit more of a bow on that, of them saying, hey, let's give this a shot if we do explain it a little bit more back at the project before he tries it. Instead, they're just you sure it's going to, I don't know if it's going to work. Center me on me. Dun, dun, dun.
Bounce me.
Bounce me on me. Tina, join it.
It's so good. I love it. He's at the mall and he's still trying to direct his past self over to Sam, and he's there's these twins there, and there's something going on with these two twins that can see Al, and Sam's trying to stop the robbery at the same time. So kind of these two plots intertwining. There was a little bit with past Al. Him musing what he's going to do. He's thinking about retirement, stuff like that. So I like that it came together there. I just I wish there was more of that in this book.
Yeah, and I liked the place that she put Al in a turning point in his life, and him not being sure about what his future was going to hold. A little bit of depression, a little bit of trepidation. It has a nice counterpoint to the Al that we know, and just how profoundly being on the project has affected not only his life, but his personality and his outlook. And I kind of liked the juxtaposition of the two of those, seeing him in a darker place. Not that I like grimdark per se, but it's an honest place to put the character at that time in his life.
Yeah, it was nice to see more of the past, what things were going on with Al before the project.
Yeah, it just felt so unnecessary.
Felt unnecessary?
Yeah, interesting and good, but unnecessary to the main plots. I wish it had been a bit more carefully tied in.
Would you wish that there was less of the leap going on, or there was less of the project stuff going on? Which focus would you rather they were on?
Tough call, because I think that they were both good in their own ways. It's just that, they were kind of vying for attention, and they could have been two separate novels with some extra meat behind each of them. I don't know. It just felt like each of them were there to increase the page count. Didn't serve either well.
The thing with this leap that really bothered me too, I think, is that so much of it doesn't really affect Sam, like who he leaped into. There's the whole thing about with Al, but Al's not, he's a peripheral character in this story. Like, he could very easily just not have been in Ross Malachi's life and it wouldn't have made that much difference. But like, Sam has leaped into this assistant for this Dr. Wales guy, and he lives above them, but he's not like, it's not like any of this stuff really affects his character. So it just feels like Sam's distanced from what's going on.
Yeah, they even make it a point to say that his character is just hunky-dory. You know, he gets married and he writes, I don't know what it was, like newsletters or something like that. It was very, like a very humdrum existence. Like, there was no stakes for the leapee at all.
It feels impersonal, and it doesn't feel like anything to do with their story affects Sam personally either. So even if it's like, oh, well, Sam's not one of the people who's dying of cancer or whatever's going on in that plot, but he's like, what if it was like, oh, he relates to it because this reminds him of this thing about his own life. It just seems very impersonal, and the stuff that is more personal with Al is just very not that much in the story because Al's not part of this character's life.
Well, I mean, Sam did have a lot of memories of Katie, and I think that was because he was dealing with Lisa.
You're right. I think the stuff with Steno would remind him of Katie's abusive husband.
But I mean, that was all. That was all. I'm trying to think. Now you got me on a tangent trying to think of leaps in which the leapee was just there. Like, Sam leaped in so that he could affect somebody else's life, and it wasn't about the person he had leaped into.
There had been ones like that, like Animal Frat was kind of like that. There was something at the end about the guy he leaped into, but most of it was about the other woman that he had to stop the bomb and all that. There's stuff like that, but he kind of, when it's leaps like that, usually it's like he's leaped into an unusual character. Or there's some situation Sam's placed in where it's like, how do you get this character involved in this situation and all of that. And Ross Malachi is just not, or Malachi or however you pronounce it, he's just not a very interesting character. He's just an average dude.
You know what I'm thinking? Song for the Soul could be another example of that. He's part of the girl group. He's part of the trio, but
yeah,
you know, you don't really get into the woman that he leaped into. You get more into the family drama of the preacher and his daughter.
This story is kind of similar in some ways with that, isn't it? You got to bring the father and the daughter together again.
Yeah. The only difference between the two of these is Song for the Soul can make you cry.
No emotional connection with this. No emotional connection at all. It's just a jerky dad who doesn't want to listen, and he's too focused on his own stuff and not paying attention to the fact his wife is dying of cancer, his daughter is getting involved with this shitty guy. Like, there's just a lot of crappy stuff going on, and I didn't like this Stephen Wales guy. I get that was the point, but there's a lot of stuff focused on him. And he's not even interesting jerk. He's just a boring jerk.
That's the thing. If you're going to have an antagonist as like the main focus, it's got to be something. There's got to be something interesting and engaging about them. But yeah, you just kind of want him to get out of the way and let's look at the other characters for a bit.
Yeah, you guys aren't wrong. I mean, a lot of this was sort of by the numbers, very basic. And I don't think it's fair to compare anything to Song for the Soul. I mean, it's one of the most wrenching, emotional, spectacular Quantum Leap episodes of all time. Too Close for Comfort's fine. It's absolutely fine.
There's some similarities, but it's not like the stories are exactly the same or anything like that. There's just some similarities there, I guess.
Can I highlight something just because I feel we're all being quite down on Ashley and the story here, and we all agreed at the start she's a good writer. It's just maybe there's issues with this story. I was looking at an interview she gave in Quantum Quarterly in '94, where she said she wanted to do a novel about a quiz show, but the comics were already doing that. So she said, I had to come up with a replacement idea in about 5 minutes flat, literally. So to be fair, she was under pressure. I mean, I don't know how quickly the novel world turns around. I don't know. Would Ginger really have said, right, you got 5 minutes, come up with a new plot, or we'll get another writer in. There's a guy out there called Chris that's trying to...
The pitch probably was the stuff with Al, and then she had to come up with some filler stuff in between. I'm sure that was exactly what the pitch was.
That's what I figured.
Like I said, I don't think, like, she wrote this badly. I don't even think, like, it's a bad idea or anything either. This felt like it could have been, like, a leap on the show that maybe wasn't a favorite episode of mine, but it's also one of those things where, you know, there's other interesting things in the story and you're waiting to get through the family drama stuff so you can see what's going on with Al, so you can see what's going on with the project, because that stuff is more engaging than what's going on with Sam. And Sam doesn't really have a lot to do through the whole thing, because in the end he's trying to get Dr. Wales to kind of wake up and pay attention to his family, but as far as like him having to take action with anything, I mean, there's the mall robbery at the very end. The rest of it, he's just kind of sitting around.
Yeah, and that's, again, I think this was a failing of the novel, of Corny Knowledge as well. It seems to me that Ashley still doesn't have the, I want to say that the dynamic between Sam and Al is still off in this novel. I understand that Al's in a different place and Al's freaked out and all that, but just like in the first novel, I think most of the interaction between Sam and Al in this novel is just constant, tense bickering. That's all they share. Again, there's none of that camaraderie. There's none of that Sam and Al connection that we like as fans. It's just Sam is always pissed at Al. Al is being freaked out. Where's Al? Where's he? You know, what am I supposed to do? I don't believe Ziggy. What's going on? It's just like... Huh?
He likes Pastel. He's nice with him.
That's because Pastel saved him from getting his ass beat in the parking lot.
That was pretty good too. I wrote down this part. I forget where this happened in the novel, but I remember I wrote it down because it was so funny to me. Sam hears someone say, "Hey baby," and he thinks it's Al at first. Hey baby, and he's Al? Oh, it's not Al. Is that something Al says to him?
How many times has Al stepped out of that doorway and said, "Hey, baby"?
Hey, baby. Looking pretty good, Sam.
Well, there was What Price Gloria.
That's true. Hey, baby.
He said plenty of stuff in What Price Gloria.
I don't think I particularly noted Ashley McConnell writing Sam and Al's dynamic that badly. You're right, it's kind of tense in this, like, so it's not happy-go-lucky through a lot of it. There's some stuff, but it's not exactly a lighthearted story either.
I just want to see a scene with them being friends.
Yeah.
That's all.
They were, it was at the end, at the very end. This is something, too, I have to bring up. Okay, Sam gives past Al a gift. It is the origin of Al's fashion. Right. There's the origin. He gives him a tacky tie, and that's why he wears tacky stuff now. There has to be an origin for everything.
Everything. Everything. You want a prequel? We're going to give you an origin story. That's it.
Was anyone wondering? And that is why Al wears tacky clothes.
I have always wondered that. I mean, it couldn't just be that that's future fashion. No.
Some rando dude in a hospital in Albuquerque gave him a tie.
Now I have to get a wardrobe around this tie.
Yeah, he spent so much money on this wardrobe.
Somebody call Jean-Pierre Dorliac, future Jean-Pierre Dorliac.
Yeah.
And then one day Al loses the tie and he's like, shit, my whole wardrobe is just pointless. Hey, baby, I need a new wardrobe.
Hey, Sam, baby, I'm wearing the tie you gave me.
Had the book series gone on, there would have been a 17th novel about Al losing the tie and Sam leaping to find it, to restore Al's fashion sense. And
his lucky tie. Everyone knew about his lucky tie.
The imaging chamber door with a capital D opens and Al steps out wearing nothing but a white shirt and khakis. Al, what happened? What are you talking about, Sam? I've always worn white shirts and khakis. Oh boy.
So we were talking about a book.
This whole ending of this book was so good. They're stopping the robbery at the mall, and then Al gets shot in the arm. The drama, the absolute drama of the whole thing. And then they're at the hospital together, and they have to convince Dr. Wales to wake up. It's so good.
You know what? I think that there was some genuinely good tension in the robbery scene in the climax of the book. I liked that.
Had to get some action into the story, you know?
Yeah. Shit went down.
I thought there was some action, but enough with the freaking kids. Ashley likes to write like precocious kids that like aren't in any way realistic.
Mm-hmm.
What, the twins?
The twins kind of annoyed me. I mean, they were okay, but the fact that they're 6 and running around a mall alone, and the fact that if you see in the first part of the book, Sam walks out of the conference room in just his jeans, and a 4-year-old looks into the door and sees him. And she describes the 4-year-old in a way that, again, no 4-year-old is this cognizant of anything going on around them. She always writes these kids that are like, it's like way too smart TV kids. I mean, this was like that kid, the carnival in the first book. It's like, what
I don't remember.
what's the fixation
were the twins
with that?
a plot point? Did he get them to do something that affected something else?
No, they were just there and they were able to see him.
But he was like trying to get them out of the way, though, right? Because he didn't want them involved with the robbery. Something Al was doing.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she just likes the way that it works with Al. You know, like kids and animals and all this stuff. Like maybe she just likes playing with that.
Yeah, could be, and it could be a way again if you're just a fan of the books and you haven't seen the show, a way to reiterate. Oh yeah, by the way, kids can see Al. So, again, twice it's gone nowhere. Twice that she's done absolutely nothing with it. It's just that, okay, that's a thing. And then there was also a cat that could see him in this one, too. A cat named Macho. That's going to be our next t-shirt. Scott Madison, get on that.
I wrote this down. I don't remember if this was something I was wondering or if Sam was wondering. I don't know. I think he was wondering it. He wonders why animals see him. If it's his mind, because they're still going with the mind leap thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another question, Chris, I would like you to answer. If Sam's mind leaping, how come people see Sam?
Because animals don't see people. They see your soul, Allison. Okay?
They see your soul.
Animals are pure beings. And the bodies don't count to them. They see your soul, your essence. Hello.
I'm so confused.
Duh. Obviously, you don't love your cat enough. Obviously. So I'm sorry, Ash.
She sees my soul and she's like, oh boy. Not again.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Listen, I'm not adverse to the idea of it being body leaps. I'm just saying it could be fluid. That's all.
Well, this book brings it up because in the book universe, it's his mind. So now it's even more confusing.
Yeah, so far it's his mind. The book universe expands.
I think it's only the Ashley McConnell books that do that, isn't it?
Is it just hers?
I think when we move on to the other authors, mostly they do them right.
Some of them are still mind leaps because it's important to the plot in that, but
yeah.
I think it depends on the book. But yeah, but in the Ashley McConnell universe, she said that it's his mind, and she even brings it up here, like, hey, why does that work that way? It's like, I don't know, you tell us, Ashley,
Yes.
you're the one who brought it up. So funny. They have a lot of questions. They ask what happens to Sam's body if Sam dies in the waiting room.
Yes.
Or if Sam dies in the leap, I mean, what happens to his body in the waiting room?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
And I like the fact that they said that Malachi would just go insane. We'd have to lock him away because he's obviously going to go insane. It's like, what?
And then he would be a much more interesting character. The end.
So, yeah, but they didn't seem to think that he would snap back or whatever. Then he would be stuck there in the future with them.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting thing. I so wish that Universal would have let somebody kill Sam at some point in the books and then undo it. Because you could have played with so much stuff with that.
It would have been interesting.
Yeah. So, anyway.
That someone being you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had a whole death scene. I had a whole, oh my God. It just came up in my mind of what would happen and all the things being undone that Sam once did. And we'll get there eventually.
Chris, I sincerely hope you're thinking far enough ahead that this pilot that's coming up is good enough to spin off a series, and the series is good enough to spin off another series of novels. And you're pitching for that already.
I'm pitching.
Yeah. Do another series of novels. Do some comics. Come on, NBC. You know what we want.
IDW will do the comics. That's their kind of thing these days. And I don't know who would do the novels, but whoever does the novels, they need Chris on board.
Get the gang back together. Get all the old novel people back and be like, you're back on board, boys, girls.
Yeah.
Start pitching.
Start pitching.
Hey, baby, start pitching.
Ginger's like, I'm back in business, baby.
What ideas does everyone have about Al this time? Al's not in this one. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Well, it depends on are they bringing back novels about the old show or the new show?
Oh, yeah.
Or the comics? I bet you if it was IDW, that would be the OG show.
Yes.
IDW could do both.
Yeah. Simultaneously. Have them do crossovers. The possibilities are endless.
If they were going to do novels, the novels would be on the new show exclusively. Because if you think about it, a lot of the newest Star Trek stuff is all about Discovery and Picard. And they're actually closing up the extended Star Trek universe, the novel verse, in light of the fact that now they have stuff set in that actual time. So they wrapped all of that up because canon now contradicts all of it.
Oh my gosh. Does that make John Peele's novel about them fighting a dragon in Next Gen not canon anymore?
That's the only one that's canon. Everything else
Good, thank God.
has been ejected.
That was too good to not be canon.
Cannot erase that one.
Cannot erase
Here
it.
There Be Dragons, the sole remaining champion of the EU for Star Trek.
Sorry, we were talking about a book.
We're going off on so many tangents.
Too close, too comfortable. We're like Al, we keep running away from the plot.
I feel like most of this is my fault. I'm just bored of talking about this book. I'm sorry, guys.
All right, here's. I have a few notes. These are minuscule things that don't need to have extended conversations.
Try us.
They do state that Sam remembers some things one leap and not the next. I know that's something that we had talked about before. Like this more concretely states that it's just sort of whatever.
Yep, it's a hodgepodge, a haphazard hodgepodge. That's the way I always looked at it in the series too. So.
Yeah, it definitely was just, whatever. There's also the multiple spellings of Gushy.
Mm-hmm.
Gushy's spelled different in this one. They have a U instead of two O's.
And
that was like that in the scripts of the show, too. They would switch around between the two of them. Not consistent.
Yes. I distinctly remember, and if you bother to read the book, Chris, there is a page where in a footnote, I explain what I consider to be the canon spelling of Gushy and literally counting out the number of times each spelling is used. So the one with two O's is the most common one. I do some complicated maths.
I believe that was Dennis Wolfberg's preferred spelling of it, too. I believe someone asked him at some point, or he stated it at some point.
That's not as important, but okay, that's a tertiary resource, Allison. But that's all right, that's fine.
It's just the amount, then it wins out, whatever the spelling was. But it's both the same way, so two O's. Canon spelling.
Yeah.
It's kind of Beckett with one T and two. Now we have the Gushy conspiracy, I guess.
See, and you thought these notes weren't going to bring discussion up.
Just my last note, Al's speaking a bunch of Italian in this. I feel this is something the books emphasized very much, the fact that he spoke Italian, and the show seemed to kind of forget after that, the double identity episode, basically.
Yeah, Al's Italian.
I like that detail. I like that detail that he speaks Italian. I like they remember that stuff. I like that the books bring up things that the show didn't bring up for whatever reason, or it was only once or twice. It's like, yeah, let's elaborate on that.
Mm-hmm.
His dad was from Abruzzi, he spoke Italian. Guido,
Guido from Abruzzi. Guido from Abruzzi.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just kind of nice, and I think the novels remembered that more often.
He works in the oil fields. Guido from Abruzzi. He's salted the earth. He puts his kids in orphanages.
Did that mean anything to you as the resident Italian, Chris? The fact that he's speaking more Italian, there's more of that gusto in there?
Honestly, he spoke Italian for 2 sentences at the very end when he was fainting. So, no, it didn't. I mean, It didn't strike me as weird, but I think he said basta, which means enough. Basically, because he's yelling at whales. And I think the other one was, if you're going to dance, dance. And Al translated himself for Sam that way.
They're throwing a little flavor, a little bit of that chili, a little bit of that.
Well, at least he wasn't a gangster.
Spicy meatball.
I like it. He didn't threaten to kill somebody. So,
Banga, banga, banga. And all that.
Joey. Anyway, I was just looking at my book. Gushy is spelled with 2 O's. The conspiracy deepens.
I know, because I was just looking in mine and seeing the listing of the different spellings.
Oh, and speaking of, you didn't read my book, I didn't read your book. I'll read your book when you listen to an episode of the podcast. How's that, Matt?
Oh, catty. This podcast sucks. I only listen to decent stuff. And now for my next trick, I'm going to list all the different spellings of Gushy.
Is there more than 2?
No, there is only the 2. But I could list out the different places that it's spelt differently, but I won't. Just refer to page 636 of Beyond the Mirror Image.
Yeah, everyone, get out your book.
And if you haven't bought it, that one analysis is worth every penny of the cover price.
Yeah.
And since everything I write regarding Quantum Leap is now canon, there's also a spelling Yoshi.
Oh.
Good old Yoshi.
That's a deep cut. Go back and listen to our Leap Day special. Anyway, guys, I don't know that I got any more to say about Too Close, Too Comfortable. You want some final thoughts?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, let's do it.
Allison.
This is, there's a little bit sprinkled in this. I didn't hate the book. Ashley McConnell's a good writer, but just not really into the Leap situation overall.
Okay. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's enjoyable enough. It's well written. It's got some fun bits. If it wasn't a Quantum Leap novel, maybe I'd go in with lower expectations and I'd just find this passable. But it's a shame it is 2 stories that aren't given enough time to breathe.
2 stories, too uncomfortable.
Yes.
Loving it. I'm going to agree with you, Matt. The 2-story aspect. The one story that really should have intrigued me, I wish they would have done a bit more with, been a little bit more geeky about, and really spelled some more stuff out, so that we can say, "Oh, that's how that works. Oh, that's an amazing addition to the lore." As it is, they hang some interesting plot threads, dangle them, and entice you, and then don't really go anywhere with them, which is unfortunate because I think it has loads of potential. And I really like the main leap. As I've said before, I think this fits right into the wheelhouse of Quantum Leap. And yeah, was it kind of depressing to get through some of it? Of course, but it was about a depressing subject. So, I mean, Quantum Leap can be heavy sometimes, and this book captures that aspect of it. So, anyway, I think that puts the discussion of Too Close for Comfort in the books. See what I did there? So this is where we usually go to break, but I'm just going to plow straight through because we have some exciting news both on the Patreon front and about the reboot. So first things first, we have some new patrons.
Yay!
Woo-hoo! We have a new patron from Down Under. Her name is Kim Au, A-U, from Australia. I don't know do I sound like Hayden? Did I do that all right?
Well, that's a new pronunciation of Australia, but all right.
Kim, if you'd like to call in and do an impression of an Italian American, please feel free.
Yeah, I was throwing out the bada bings, bada booms. I can't talk.
I'm not good at accents at all, but Kim joins us at the $5 Leaper level. That means that she's automatically a member of the QLP Book Club, and she will be getting her QLP bookmark as soon as freaking Australia opens up the mails to America. We have like 7 or 8 patrons over there that can't get their stuff. But you will get it one day, I promise. As a $5 Leaper, Kim also has access to all of our exclusive bonus content, and we have another $5 Leaper to announce, and he's got a familiar name. You guys might have heard it before, Barry Donovan.
Hey, Barry!
Barry Donovan.
Hi, Barry.
We mentioned Barry on like the last couple of shows. He originally signed up as an observer, but he has since upped his game. And now he's supporting us at the $5 Leaper level. As a result, he gets his very own QLP Book Club bookmark, which I think Matt has already mailed, as well as access to all of our exclusive bonus content. And there's going to be a little bit more about that in a second. But you might also remember that Barry is the one who we mentioned in our last reboot special. He's the one who designed the new string theory font that appears on Matt's new website, quantumleapinfo.net, which tracks all of the verified reboot news. So, Matt, is there anything new to report over there at quantumleapinfo.net?
It sounds so exciting when I hear it in your voice, Chris. Thank you. So, things have been quite quiet over the last week or so. I think actually by the time this is out, there'll be a couple of small new pieces on there. But yeah, mostly I think it's the bits of information about the plot line that have come to light through our friends at Fate's Wide Wheel, and a couple of minor production crew. Their names have been, have come out through the likes of Production Weekly and so on that I've managed to get hold of. So yeah, there's little bits, but production starting in, or filming is starting in a couple of weeks. So I think that's when things should start really heating up.
It's such a great thing for me to have that resource because you do all the work for me. All I have to do is look on your website once every couple of days to see if there's any breaking news, just in case you and I haven't discussed it beforehand. So I have a direct line to the source, which I love. So you can almost get that, you out there in the listening audience, by going to quantumleapinfo.net. And speaking of the reboot and the bonus content, I'm also very happy to announce that we just interviewed Christopher Kirby. Chris is the actor who originally played Herbert Magic Williams in the episode The Leap Home Part 2 Vietnam. And, they're going to be bringing that character back for the reboot. Chris lives in Australia, and Hayden McQueenie, our very own co-executive producer Hayden McQueenie, met with him to discuss his time playing Magic on the show and what he thinks about the character coming back in the new series. Guys, I think that this is it's a phenomenal get. And yeah, so thank you, Hayden, for arranging that. Hayden's the one that chased him down. He said, wait, this guy's in Australia? I'm in Australia.
Yeah, thanks, Hayden. Thanks to Chris. I'm sure he's probably not listening to this, but if he's listening, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And that's fantastic. And I think it's really cool. Hayden had mentioned to us, Chris wasn't aware they were doing a reboot till Hayden had reached out to him. So I think it's kind of neat to think that, in some way, Hayden and us by proxy had a part in getting him involved. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aren't we the coolest? We're the greatest. No, I'm just teasing about that. But Chris was gracious with his time. He spent a lot of time with Hayden, and we do have a full interview. It's a mix of both audio and video. And this is what we're going to do to release it. The full interview itself will soon be available as an early access Patreon exclusive, available to all the $5 Leaper patrons and above. So if you're really interested and you want to get the scoop, you can go and check us out at patreon.com/quantumleappodcast. After that, it will premiere on our YouTube channel. Albie has been going nuts over on the YouTube channel. If you guys haven't seen this, he's been posting old interviews, old episodes of the podcast, and any of the new stuff that we're putting out. So you can find all of that on youtube.com. Just search for the Quantum Leap Podcast. And once you've done that and you've subscribed to our channel, you can watch the interview there. And then after that, the interview will appear on the podcast proper. We'll put it on the regular feed in an upcoming episode of the podcast, but that might be a while because we're mixing between the episode recaps for earlier in the series and the book shows. So that could be a number of weeks before we can get it out onto the main feed. So we encourage you, if you want to check it out on Patreon and also to check it out eventually on the YouTube channel. You'll probably see it in one of those two places first, most definitely.
And I just wanted to say thanks, Albie, for putting all this stuff on the YouTube channel, doing a lot of work there.
Yeah, he's got some pretty big plans for what he wants to do once the reboot is up and running. So it's really going to be worth subscribing. I don't have a direct URL to give you on that because I'm just too lazy to look it up. But if you go to YouTube, search Quantum Leap Podcast, we'll come up in the search feature. You'll see our logo prominently displayed. Just click on that, subscribe, and you'll be good to go. If you can't wait, consider making your pledge of support on Patreon at patreon.com/quantumleappodcast. And if you want to contact us and tell us what you think about the interview or the reboot or Too Close for Comfort, there are many ways that you can do so. You can get us by phone at 707-847-6682. You can email us at quantumleappodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/quantumleappodcast. You can hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at quantumleappod. And you can always go that extra mile like Kim Au and Barry Donovan and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/quantumleappodcast. Just remember that we may use your response in an upcoming episode of the Quantum Leap Podcast. And speaking of upcoming episodes, Matt, tell us what's next.
Well, it's cool. As we are delving back into the podcast's own past, I like the parallel here. It looks like Sam's going to be doing the same thing, because we're going to be discussing Starcrossed, the first regular length episode.
Now all I have to do is figure out who I am, where I am, and why all these young women are staring at me as if I were Tom Cruise.
So did that win the poll? Is that what?
Yep, Starcrossed won the poll.
So people just want an order. They don't want jumping around to thou shalt not.
It's funny you say
we'll see
that.
What happens when we get up to thou shalt not. Does it get skipped?
We've been threatening that thou shalt not is going to be on every poll, and they're almost calling our bluff over there, guys, because thou shalt not was a close second. To Starcrossed. Starcrossed eked it out by like 3 or 4 votes.
The hype is real.
Once we've done thou shalt not, can it come off the poll? Because I don't want to do it. We'll do it once, but I don't want to do it a second time.
It's a yearly thing. Every year we do thou shalt not a different time. Just to see how we think about it the 3rd, 4th, 5th time around.
It'll be the new A Little Miracle, just more and more depressing each time.
Yeah, 6 hours of thou shalt not.
And in case listeners out there don't know what we're talking about with the poll, that's another Patreon feature. For as little as $1 a month, you can become what we call a programmer member, and you can vote in the poll to figure out which leap we cover next of the old leaps that we haven't covered. So it doesn't necessarily have to go in order. It just so happens that the people that are voting have been voting for them in order. So for Genesis, now Starcrossed, but Thou Shalt Not will be on every poll, and we might be doing it third. That's up to you. If you want to come in and, support it, you can push Thou Shalt Not over the top. So that's patreon.com/quantumleappodcast. Always be plugging. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Starcrossed. I mean,
yeah,
that's, again, first, genuine, leap. So,
yeah.
And can't go far wrong with Terry Hatcher either. I'm looking forward to that. Until then, I have been Christopher DeFilippis.
I've been Allison Pregler.
And I've been Matt Dale.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Quantum Leap Podcast, hosted by Allison, Matt, and Chris, with voice talent and contributions from Hayden McQueenie and Zoe Dean. Visit us at quantumleappodcast.com. To support the show, please go to patreon.com/quantumleappodcast. The executive producer of the Quantum Leap Podcast is Albert Burge. Christopher DeFilippis and Hayden McQueenie are the co-executive producers. Morgan Felden, Charles Allen Gossard, and Ben Kirkham are the producers. The thoughts expressed on this podcast are those of the individual and do not necessarily represent those of the Quantum Leap Podcast, its partners, or affiliates. The Quantum Leap universe and all it contains is the property of Belisarius Productions and Universal Television. The Quantum Leap Podcast is not affiliated with Belisarius Productions or Universal Television, and no copyright infringement is intended. Please visit barrenspace.com for this and other amazing content. The Quantum Leap Podcast is a Barren Space production.
Too close for comfort.
Too close, too comfortable.
This is going to be the new Quantum Leap theme. We got to record it and then send it to them. You got all the connections, Matt. You know how to contact the casting directors.
Yeah, I've already done that. I got out my old cassette recorder and a microphone earlier on, and I recorded myself going da 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 da, and then I posted the tape to them. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, it'll be on their desk.
We got to submit that video that guy did with the lyrics to Quantum Leap, like Quantum Leap, Quantum Leap.
Leaping throughout time. It's classic.
It's no crime.
Oh, man. I'm just bored of talking about this book. I'm sorry, guys.
All right, here's. I have a few notes,
and I got one question for Matt before your notes.
Yeah.
You did say, Matt, that you did a lot of weird research into this book. Was that the interview that you were talking about, or is there other stuff that you have yet to reveal?
Did I?
Yes, at the beginning you said I did a lot of weird research when it came to this book, but we'll get to that. Well, we're at that point. Elaborate.
I did. No, I think I said that Ashley did some weird research. What context was that in? I know this was only like an hour ago, but...
You said that there was some weird research put into this. You get into it. It seemed like you were talking about yourself, but if you're talking about Ashley, what are you talking about? What's her weird research?
Oh, no. I meant like Ashley making references to Leap for Lisa and allegedly before or after it happened. The view phone. Tina's legs. I thought it was very important that they mentioned Tina's long legs. Someone that clearly hasn't seen... leap back. Ashley just goes to town on the references in this that are all wrong.
Yeah, now, okay, so, I mean, in Leap Back, you see Tina, maybe she's not that tall, but maybe she is mostly legs. Maybe the legs are the tall part.
Maybe, did we see her feet? Maybe she was walking around on her knees.
Okay, I'm going to put an end to this. Allison, you had some notes?
All right, these are very minuscule things.
Too close and too comfortable.
It's no crime. Are we stopping?
Yeah, stopping. Pounce me on me. Tina, join in.